Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the S2PCI webinar today that we're having for you guys. It's just hitting the time right now, so I'm going to give a little bit more time for more people to join. So give us a few minutes and we'll get started here shortly. Hope everyone's having a good Wednesday out there. I know everyone's trying to get their work done this week so they can maybe take a couple extra days next week for the holidays. Um, so if that is that what you're trying to do? I'm hoping that this doesn't take you away from it too much and you get your stuff done. All right, well, it looks like the list is growing. I'll give it another 30 seconds or so and we'll start. I am going to share my screen here. And all right, it's a pretty color. That was not very manly of me to say, but whatever. I like the color. So, all right, let's get started. So S2PCI. So my name is Brian Freestat. I am the Senior Account Manager here at Security Studio. If you haven't heard from me or anything, I've been here about 6 months, so still kind of in the newer phase, but I'm excited to be here. And I'm really excited to launch what we're about to today. So I do have about 20 years experience in the technology space. I've been in multiple companies. MSPs have seen me, whether it's training organizations or I was even on a marketing team. So I've been all over the place, but I'm really excited to be here. And again, excited to share with you what we have. So next, you're going to have some poll questions. Some poll questions are going to pop up. If you could take a minute here and answer them for us, we'd appreciate it. It's always good information for us, how to gear our products and what we're doing and what we're providing to our partners. So the more information we have from you, the better. So take a few seconds, answer those two questions. Shouldn't take much longer than that, and we'll go from there. All right, moving on. So I think I have to answer these to get these out of my screen. So, all right. So S2PCI, we're very excited. We're adding to our S2 suite, our security suite of products that we have. You know, most of you might know and should know about our S2 team, our S2 org, S2 vendor, S2 partner, and now again S2PCI. It's providing you with the confidence of knowing you've selected the correct forms and enable streamlined process for your compliance documentation. And we're going to get more into it. We're going to show you a demo and all that fun stuff as well. So S2PCI, I think the four main things about S2PCI are your efficiency, your alignment, your centralization, and your accuracy. So first, with your efficiency, you're going to shorten the time frame by using built-in logic to determine the correct execute form. You know, it takes a lot of times, and the last thing you want to do, if you look at our accuracy, is you want to reduce the risk of picking the wrong form. That is not going to be good if you do that. So you want to make sure that you align your documentation with your PCI standards. Centralization, organize your workload within S2PCI with automatic communications and evaluation schedule and evidence collection, all in the same spot. Again, very important. It all kind of aligns, right? You know, one goes into the other. One is not more important than the other, but you got to make sure you do them all correctly. All right. So now I have the complete and utter, excitement to introduce you to
Every time.
Caitlin Fox Dash Carter. I have to make sure I get that correct. She's our product manager, and I'm going to kind of let her talk a little bit about herself, and then we're going to go into some more slides here, and then we'll go into a demo. So Caitlin, take it away.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. I'm very excited to introduce S2PCI. It's something we've been working on first as a custom project, then as a beta, and now it is available for all users. I have been with Security Studio for 6 years, and I've gotten to see it go from infancy, where we had one product, to the suite it is today. So this is very exciting for us. right, Brian?
Gotcha. Sorry, a little slow on the trigger there.
Okay, sure. So we're going to go over the product shortly inside the tool itself, but we wanted to cover some ground rules here. Okay, so we don't know how familiar you are with PCI, so we're gonna take it down to the beginning. Okay, so S2PCI is designed specifically to help with PCI compliance requirements for levels 2 through 4. So level 1 is the most stringent, and it's when you are rated by the PCI Council or your credit card company that you are processing over 6 million card transactions per year. It can vary by credit card brand, but that's largely consistent. So if you are level 1 or you have customers that are level 1, they have to follow different requirements. Levels 2 through 4 have a different volume of transactions, but by and large, they share the same PCI compliance requirements, right? And they allow you to self-assess using the SAQ form, the self-assessment form. So what we cover in S2PCI are organizations helping their customers do a self-assessed form. All right, the evaluation workflow. So I broke it down into 4 steps for you. The first one is just the setup. So you're going to add in, we call it a site, but think of it as a business entity, a storefront, a branch, an agency, anything that creates basically an entity that might be processing different, processing credit card data in different ways, right? So you add them into the site list. Next, we have to classify. So what this means is that we are not scoping, that's done outside the tool, but we are determining the business type, the compliance level, and all of these things come together to help determine which self-assessment form, if any, needs to be completed. So right now, most people doing PCI compliance are left on their own to do this, and this can take hours of research to determine which SAQ form is appropriate. There are some dangers of picking the wrong SAQ form. If you choose one that's not comprehensive enough, then you are missing requirements you need to be compliant with. Or you could be choosing one that is way too comprehensive. So for example, SAQD would have 300 plus sub-requirements you would have to complete. And that is almost impossible for most small to medium organizations without getting outside assistance. All right. Then the assessment. So this is the SAQ stage. So self-assessment, right? In this stage, you're going to be completing the SAQ form that was determined from classification. The SAQ form, the types are all published by the PCI Council, which is the regulating body. So you would be completing section 2 of the form in the online form. So this is where we grab all the responses pertaining to the requirements and the sub-requirements. You would have to complete after the fact any other additional portions of the form. So for example, section 1 has to do with the assessment details and scoping. You have to do that. And then section 3 is the validation and attestation. You would do that as well. You would make sure you attest before you send the form off to whatever body needs it. Okay. And then stage 4, and this is remediation. So you can use remediation in a couple ways. You might be capturing notes or evidence on any of the sub-requirements. So yes, maybe you do have the requirement. You've answered yes, but now you need to make sure everything is ready for some type of auditor or your own organization to centralize around. You also could be working to make a non-compliant requirement compliant. So there is no tolerance for non-compliance. So if you do have to remediate that, you can use our automated system. So you can assign this out to the body on the other side at this site or sub-entity you're working with. And they can implement the requirement. And once that's done, the evidence can be attached. You can mark it as complete. And the system will produce a remediated export of the SAQ form. So you'll have your original results in assessment, your remediated results after remediation, and you can close the evaluation from that point.
So
All right.
why don't we take a look now? I'm going to stop my screen here for a second. I'm going to let Caitlin take over and give you a proper demo, which you're all here for anyways. And why don't you guys check out the product? Caitlin, take it away.
All right, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So what we're looking at here is our site list. It is our dashboard. So here, all of my sites, along with all of the different evaluations I have open for them, I can look at them all together in this view and filter. I can also cut these down and look at which open evaluations I have in these different stages. Okay. To add an evaluation or a site, I click Add Site. We'll give it a moment, right? And I'm going to go ahead and add Agency 10. So perhaps I'm a state, I'm running different agencies. I'm tracking that this agency, Agency 10, is processing credit card data in 3 different ways. Right? Agency 10 is a finance agency. So I go ahead and I add that. All right, so there are 4 potential card acceptance process types: card in hand, e-commerce, mail order, or telephone order. I can add an evaluation for each of these. I'm going to start with e-commerce. So all of these would be attached to the same site. They can run concurrently. Some sites may only be doing one type. Others may have all 4. You have flexibility here. All right, so this evaluation is now open and I can find it on the site list if I needed to, but I'm going to jump right here. Okay, we're now in the classification stage. So this is where we determine which SAQ form, if any, we need to do. Right? This is a dynamic questionnaire. So it's responding as we go. Right? If I had answered differently, I might be going down a different path. Right? So I'll go through and answer all these questions. This is a very short step, but it's a very important step. So it removes guesswork for you by being able to rely on this built-in logic. You reduce the risk of completing wrong compliance forms. Those would be the SAQ forms. And you don't do more work than you need to, all by taking the time here to answer this. You are welcome to answer the classification form for each evaluation yourself. However, if you are managing a large, complex organization, you can also invite what we call a site contact. So this would be your contact, boots on the ground at Agency 10, who could answer this as well. Right? So you can farm it out or you can answer it yourself. If you choose to farm it out, they get the invitation from us, they register, they complete this step, and once they submit, that's it for the time being. You receive these results. SAQA. Right? We facilitate all those email communications and the registration. Right? So you can sit back and await for these results to come in. So what we have here is that based on these responses, Agency 10 for their e-commerce card acceptance process should be doing SAQA. This is a really good thing. We know that there's a danger of falling into SAQD, which I think is like the dreaded SAQD, which is the most comprehensive. So as I said, over 300 sub-requirements, right? SAQA is much more tailored. Our classification step told us based on what you do, what you touch, the volume, you only have to do SAQA. So you have a much smaller subset of requirements to complete. So as the administrator, I'm going to confirm, I agree, that's what I want to do. We currently support 2 versions of the SAQ forms. The PCI Council published a new version 4.0. This is the version that will be supported going forward. 3.2.1 will be deprecated in March, but we do support both. Right? If you are relying on a site contact, so that help, you can invite them here, or we can push the evaluation into the SAQ stage. All right, so this is the SAQ form right here. This is available from the PCI Council now. These are their requirements in this format. But what we've done is we've reformatted them into an online form that's easier to answer. Right? So you would come through here, answer. We also have the expected testing and all other information you would need. If there is a required note, so if you're familiar with the SAQ form, there are appendices in section 3 that if you choose certain responses, you have to provide a note. We would capture it here. So for example, if you choose NA, you have to put in a note here to proceed. If you choose the SSCCW, we will capture all of those notes for you. The benefit being that once this is submitted in totality, you will be able to export all of this into the standard SAQ form. Right? So it will be prepared for you. I am going to go ahead and jump to one that is already done, so we don't all have to watch me finish that. All right, and the one I want to look at is agency 4. Here we go, awaiting approval. Okay, so it looks like they also completed SAQA. This one was submitted, and it is not PCI compliant. That's actually a really easy calculation because if there are any no's at all, it's not compliant. As I said, there's no tolerance for non-compliancy. Okay, so your options here. If this is all you needed to do, then you could go ahead and you could click export, and we would populate the SAQ form for you, and you'd have a Word document form ready to go. However, you could also choose to remediate. So if it's not acceptable for you to be non-compliant, then you need to do something about it. So we're going to go ahead and go into remediate. All right. If you're familiar with our other modules, you might know that we typically remediate discovered risks only in our remediation stages. But S2PCI is slightly different. We've opened it up so that way, in addition to focusing on the non-compliant items, you can also collect evidence or do follow-up on any response type. So if I come in here, I can select that I want to see everything. Right? But for our purposes, I'll go back to looking at just no's. All right. So here's the requirement, and then we have our sub-requirement. If I click on the list, I can go ahead and see all the details. If I want to assign, I can go ahead and do that. And it will go out to the site contact team that you've already built out by inviting them in previous stages. Okay. So I can assign a due date. I can leave comments. attachments. If I happen to be working closely with them and I know that actually this no should be a yes, we've already worked on it, I can go ahead and complete that myself. Right. I can also do mass actions, so I could assign it this way. Right. I need all of these done by January 18th. All right. For the site contact, so the counterpart who should be completing these, they would be receiving an email notification if they are being asked to remediate certain items. They would come in here, they would see the assigned items. They are not able to change the response type. They are able to leave you comments or attachments. Anytime an update is made, you would be getting an email alerting you that a change or an update has happened. And then in turn, if you leave a comment or an attachment or you close the item, the site contact would be notified, right? So you can use remediation to facilitate that work. And when you're done, you can indicate the change and save. Right. Okay, so I want to go ahead and close these out so you can see what this looks like. So let's assume I completed all of these. All right. Here's my last one. All right. So at the top, you may have noticed that I was non-compliant. I am now PCI compliant here. You can track these numbers here, but essentially I am done here. Okay. If we go back to the SAQ stage here, we're still maintaining separate results for your records. So if you export, you can actually choose the original SAQ form or the remediated. If you were to turn this in, like let's say you're sending it to a business partner, somewhere else in the organization, or to a regulating body, you would choose the remediated, but both will be available for you. Right? Yeah. So what we want to do from here, we can complete this evaluation and we can, so if we complete it, we're saying, yep, this is done. Right? And we can export the form here. Yep, that's the one I want. And let me go ahead and show you what that looks like. Okay, we do download the forms in Word format. This is the same thing the PCI Council does, right? As I said, we leave you to complete section 1, which would be the details and scoping of the assessment, right? So you have to put in the company's information, who is doing the assessment work, what was included, right? But for section 2, we will be populating all the responses. For this requirement, this is what was answered. Right? If we go all the way down to section 3, this is where we get the appendices for the different types of responses. So for example, if you had an NA response, you require a note. The note that we force captured would be placed here automatically. If you responded yes with CCW, the compensating controls worksheet would be filled out with the notes that we force captured. So you would provide in section 1 the details of the assessment, and then you would finish the validation and attestation portion. if you wanted to take this export copy and turn it into another body. So that is start to finish how the evaluation works. Remediation is not required. It is an extra step that's here for you. So if you finish with SAQ and compliant or not, you're done. You can complete from there and export from there. Remediation is particularly powerful for preparing your results for perhaps an audit, because you would have all evidence gathered in one place. Or if you needed to address non-compliant results, you can do it in here. Okay. As I was saying before, everything is being facilitated for you, from the communications and reminders, as well as the evaluation manager. So PCI is intended to be done cyclically. So what would happen is that upon closing on today's date, I'm going to go to the profile here. The next evaluation for card in hand would be scheduled 1 year out automatically, because it's meant to be cyclical. So unless you change this date, the reevaluation will open up again on that date, and it will go back. Actually, we can go ahead and test that. Yep. Oh, it's already November. Okay. So what would happen is it would open up again, and it would allow us to apply all of our previous responses in classification. If nothing has changed, you would just push those through, and we would presumably end up at the same SAQ form. If anything had changed, then you'd want to go ahead and note those to see if you should still be doing that SAQ form. Right? Once we get to SAQ, it would allow us to apply our previous responses. This would include anything that had been remediated. Right? So it's smart enough to pick those up and pull those forward. So year after year, you're basically reusing some of the previous information, but you're checking it, of course, for any updates. And one thing you could do is iterative improvements. So let's say last year you couldn't remediate, you didn't have the time or resources. Maybe this year you do remediate some of the items. Or maybe this year, you make a point of gathering evidence for everything in this particular section of requirements. So as your program builds, you're gaining efficiencies of volume. Everything is systematic. You have a lot of reusability, but you're also able to have perhaps everything better situated for an auditor to examine it. Right? So all your evidence in place. And this is all done through one single interface in S2PCI. Okay, Brian. From here on out, I can answer any questions.
So yeah, let me go ahead and share my screen here again. So everyone has my information. So give me a second. Let me pop this up. All right. And let's see here. Share my screen. Oh, wrong button. Might help if I hit the right button. All right. So any questions? I see it. There's one question, or one thing you mentioned was the PCI Council. I believe there's a pretty good training, right? That associated with the council. Am I correct there, Caitlin?
Yeah. So what we are offering S2PCI, which is our software solution. But if you are looking for basic PCI awareness training, the PCI Council, they have their own training courses. The very beginner tier is called awareness training. I think it's 4 hours and less than $600. So we do advise that if you're trying to get your feet wet and explore this opportunity, this is a really good basic course for you.
Okay.
I
Great.
can
Let me
actually
see.
put that link. I have it in the chat if anyone wants that.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Thank you, Caitlin.
Yeah.
Let's see if there's any other questions. Wow, not many. You did such a good job. There's not many questions, Caitlin.
Yeah, I'm sure people will think of them later.
I'm sure they will. I think something to talk about. It's nice that you can get to all the, all S2 vendor, S2 PCI, all from one place. It's all just right there in your dashboard, which is a great feature. I think that allows people, our partners and stuff just to handle everything all in one spot.
Yeah.
All right. Well, here comes the chat.
Oh,
Let's
there's
see.
something.
What are the fees for using the S2PCI? So S2PCI is a separate module than S2 org and S2 vendor. At this time right now, it's $100 per month for S2PCI. For existing partners, is there an extra cost or is it included? Well, Lyle, I just answered that. Chat and questions. I want to make sure I get an answer. So it is an add-on module, so it is not included. I do like you a lot, Lyle. So who knows? Give me a call. But it is an add-on module. It is $100 per month at this time. Let's see. Any other questions?
One thing I think it's important to point out, the content in our S2 org assessment and in PCI, the SAQ forms, related, but they don't overlap quite. They have very different focus areas. So it is not possible to port them over, and they probably wouldn't have any application in them either way. Right. So they are separate modules. We're following an evaluation workflow in PCI that makes sense for making sure you're completing the right compliance form, assuming that you have to meet the regulations by the PCI Council.
Caitlin, here's another question. Is this enough to get a level 2 merchant to attestation?
So if you are levels 2 through 4 and you qualify to do self-assessment, this will get you most of the way. But there are some things that are outside of us, right? So what I mean by that is that you do have to scope. We don't have a step that helps you do that. So tracking where credit card data goes through the systems and what's in scope and out, that would be something that you're responsible for doing as you head into the evaluation. And then, as I said, we do not complete the section 1 of the SAQ form or the literal sign-off attestation of section 3, but the main portion of the SAQ form is section 2, and that is populated by the time you get through our evaluation workflow. So what would happen, presumably, at the end is that you would export. You would make sure section 1 has all the details necessary, section 3 signed off on, and you would send this documentation to the correct parties. It might be bank, business partner, PCI Council. They might tell you that you have to verify with scan results, right? So you would have to go through an approved scan vendor. That's typically reserved for level 1, but they would let you know if that was a requirement, right? So essentially it bundles and pairs everything, and then you have to kind of sign off and send off as necessary. Not everyone does that. Some people are just getting their house in order just in case to be compliant if called upon. Others are meeting a direct ask. So they will have to turn it into somebody. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Caitlin. Is there any other questions for Caitlin? She's the project person. She'll know the answer that I won't. So any other questions from anyone? Well, listen, you guys can always reach out to me. I can get you in touch with Caitlin. We can do another demo if you want more of a one-on-one demo at any time. We will record this. We'll send this out so you guys can have it. But yeah, please, reach out to me with any, questions and comments, concerns, anything regarding S2PCI or any of our other S2 products. And I'll be more than happy to answer them. But I know for myself and the rest of the team here, Sarah and Caitlin, and the rest of the team here at Security Studio, we do want to wish you a happy holidays if we do not talk to you before then. So I hope you do have a happy holidays with you and your family. And we'll see you soon. Thank you again for joining, and look forward to the next webinar we do. Take care. Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.